the special session that we are having on the union budget. We have started doing a special session on the union budget on the very day of the budget for a very simple reason. All experts and experts in their own field are talking. So once you have heard the budget speech, before you go and listen to the TV journalists, you have to you have a clear analysis from the experts in the field. So that is why we attempt to do it on the very same day, on the day the budget speech is made. With that objective in mind, we have called domain experts today. Each of the speaker that you have seen in the flyer is going to take a different area and speak about it. In general, we have Professor Upinder who is a fiscal expert. She will be speaking about it in general, but other than that, everybody has a earmarked portfolio on which they will be speaking. To chair the session today, we have Dr. Ashok Vishandass, who himself is an agriculture expert, and he's a professor, and he has interest in sustainable agriculture. He's a professor at IIPA, and he has interest in sustainable agriculture, risk management, international trade, and commerce. He is the former chairman of CSCP, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, at the level of Secretary to the Government of India. He has rich experience of formulation of agriculture price and non-price policies, nuances of fixing MSP of various agriculture commodities. He has also served in FAO of United Nations Organization as the Chief Technical Advisor. In his stint with the UNO, he provided high-level technical and economic advice relating to food security, SDGs, agriculture marketing, and brought out 8 reports. As you know, the budget is a very important event, and because in this context, the first budget after the new government has come in, it assumes importance. In a way, it lays out a way forward for the next 5 years. And because the FM and the PM have been talking about 2047 and Viksit Bharat, in a way, it lays out the way forward for the next 25 odd years. That's why, being such an important document, you find the markets are reacting and you find different views and versions everywhere. Now, to have an expert view on the subject, I hand over the session to Dr. Ashok Vishandass, and he will conduct the proceedings further. Dr. Vishandass.
Thank you, Professor Charan Singh, for giving such a very attractive and very pleasant introduction of me, very lofty words, and I am delighted, Professor Charan. I am very grateful to the EGROW and my dear friend Charan for giving me an opportunity to chair. So, on behalf of EGROW, and on my own behalf, I welcome all the eminent experts and distinguished professors. Let me introduce with Dr. Rattan Chan. He is founder director of EGROW Foundation and former officer of Indian Statistical Service, and he served in the government of India at the level of additional secretary to government of India, and he served the government for 35 years. After that, he worked for the USAID, World Bank, UN, World Health Organization, and he represented the government at many national and international meetings, conferences, and seminars in health sector. He is an expert in health, a chief director in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. He was responsible for monitoring and evaluation, and during his tenure, many activities like establishment of health management services and information system, annual health survey, district level household survey, and national health familiar were initiated and completed by him. So he has a very remarkable career and expertise in the health. Next is Colonel uh, Mohinder Pal Singh. He did his graduation from prestigious St. Xavier College, Mumbai. He also has an MBA from Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, New Delhi, and a gold medalist in MSc from Allahabad University. He completed his doctorate in international relations from the Department of Defense and Strategic Studies, University of Allahabad. He has published number of articles in all leading journals and websites on strategic issue. He served in Indian Army in elite infantry regiment for 30 years, tenting various appointments in all kinds of terrain and operation. He was also awarded Chief of Army Staff Commendation for his pioneering work. He has been an instructor in infantry school and an assessor in the officer selection process for over 6 years. He successfully commanded the administrative battalion. Apart from his extensive experience in army and his academic pursuit, he is also a prolific writer who has, to his credit, many articles in books and strategic and national security subject and has individually authored 5 books. He has 2 recent books, Teams of Tomorrow and Myanmar and Strategic Dilemma, have been well received in the environment. He is currently director of EGROW Foundation. Next is Professor Upinder Sawhney, who is going to speak for the budget in a holistic manner for the whole in general, but others will speak the segment wise. Professor Upinder Sawhney is an expert in EGROW Foundation. She is a distinguished economist and a former professor of Punjab University, Chandigarh. She served as a chair of Department of Economics from 2007 to 2010 and 2016 to 2019 and has extensively published on Indian economic policy in both national and international journals. She led various international and domestic projects including Government of India and a scheme for promotion of academic and research collaboration. And Professor Sani has been involved in various advisory and additional roles in editorial roles in multiple academic journals and boards of study. She was a visiting scholar in Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, National University of Singapore, supervised and hosted a Fulbright fellow from the University of Florida. Her accolades include the DAAD UGC Fellowship and Fulbright Nehru Scholarship. Now, I next come to Dr. Raman Agarwal. Raman Agarwal is the Director of Finance Industry Development Council, FIIDC. He is currently working as a Senior Vice President, Head Corporate Affairs with SREI Equipment Finance Limited. He has more than 27 years of working experience in NBFC sector. He is a member of advisory groups of Ministry of Finance and RBI, which is very important. Core group set up by Ministry of Corporate Affairs and Special Task Force at FICCI. He is the chairman of National Council on NBCC and member managing committee at SOCHM. Again, very important body and the co-convener of industry government interface, because interface is very challenging. So I know how I really don't know how he handles that, but that's very curious for me personally. At that role at Indian Construction Equipment Manufacturing Association, he is a member of Academic Advisory Council of New Delhi Institute of Management and guest faculty of Chartered Accountant India ICAI and International Management Institute New Delhi. Ajit Pai, I don't know whether he has joined or not. Should I? Uh, Ajit Pai, are you here with us? I don't know where he is.
Yes,
In
I'm with
case,
you. I'm
yeah,
with
you
you.
are here, Ajit. Yeah, because some of you are visible for, but I'm very glad to see you now. Ajit Pai is the head of policy, Ola and chairman, Delhi Urban Art Commission. He was previously strategy leader, partner for government and public sector at EY Strategy and Transaction Group. He was distinguished expert in Niti Aayog until recently, where he headed economics and finance, oversaw public disinvestment and public enterprise, was consultant to the vice chairman, uh, chairperson, and handle matters related to the World Bank, IFC, IMF, ADB, NDB, OECD, and the G20. The list is very impressive, and I don't know how, again how he was handling so many portfolio. He had a career in the private sector, including working internationally at firms like McKinsey, Lazard, Thomas and partner at Stufel Financial, the latter two at the managing director. He had been awarded over 6 years of record five number one star mine awards in the Forbes Financial Times World Best Analysis Survey for forecast accuracy. He is on advisory board of the Future Institute and is registered with the Council of Architects. So this is Professor Bijoykumar Singh. Next is our panelist. He is a professor of economics at Manipur University. He has been teaching economics and macroeconomics at PG level and database of Indian economy, which is again very important. His areas of interest are development issues of northeastern region of India, including border trade, public finance, and economics. He is an active member of Northeastern Economic Association, the Indian Econometric Society, the Indian Economic Association, and Manipur Economic Association. He has edited 3 books and written extensively on various aspects of development in the northeastern region of India. Then Nirmala Padmanabhan, Dr. Nirmala Padmanabhan was a faculty of economics for 26 years for post-graduation and graduation, as it handled subjects such as financial market and system, international trade and monetary system. She has experience in the budget analysis and analysis of economic issue of the country and in rural economic development as part of Anat Bharat Abhiyan Community Development Project. Presently, she is the Dean of Extension and Incubation in St. Teresa College, Ernakulam, with overall charge of community development projects undertaken by the college and responsible for overall guidance to the business incubation and entrepreneurship development initiative of the uh, college. Now I come to Dr. Rajeshwari. You are Dr. Rajeshwari, the associate professor in Christ, very prestigious college. Uh, Professor Charan, unfortunately, I don't have the CV of Professor Rajeshwari, so perhaps you know her, and can you introduce her before we start?
Yeah, I knew her when I was at Bangalore. As you mentioned, she's at Christ University. She's a recipient of the Nandan Nilekani Fellowship and RBI Scholarship. She is a member in professional bodies like Karnataka Economic Association and Board of Studies based Bangalore, Ambedkar University. Her research interest lies in the areas of public finance, development economics, and econometrics. Rajeshwari has also contributed significantly by providing valuable insights to the industry in the area with a robust skill set that includes report writing, excellent analytical skills, policy analysis, academic program development, IPR, and more. She is a gold medalist from Karnataka University. She is the youngest panelist today with us.
Thank you, sir.
Back to you, Dr. Ashok.
So I know all the panelists are distinguished, and I knew a little bit about Professor Rajeshwari, but I didn't know the details. All I knew that she is teaching in Christ College, which is very, very prestigious. So let us start with the. I mean, this budget is very, very far-reaching consequences and the impact on our economy. I could see that this budget, there are distinguishing feature on of this budget. First, of course, it's very she the our the FM, the first lady FM, or any lady or gentleman, first FM who has presented seven budgets continuously. Earlier record was of Morarji Desai, who presented 6 times from 1959 to 1964, and this record she had broken up. So that is one thing. Second thing, I could see in this budget is it has a very, very long term vision in the budget. Though budget technically has to be for 1 year, but this budget shows the imprint. It will have a ecosystem which will resonate for next 25 years or so, until we became the Viksit Bharat or developed India. And I find this budget has made no attempt to emulate the developing or developed countries or developed model. So I find there is a Bharatiya model imprint in this, which is a homegrown solution to our unique problem. And this is the first time, perhaps, that we are presenting, the FM has presented this budget when India is the most populous country. Many people argue that if it is a most populous, you have to feed 1.43 billion people, but then they forget 2.86 billion hands are also there who will work for the growth of the nation. So that is another thing one has to keep in mind. And then there are 2 3 things which stand out in this budget. There is a lot of emphasis on the job creation. It has to not to be inclusive growth also include. So job, many people see it is not just to remove the poverty or to eradicate poverty or just to provide the livelihood or just to prevent them from starvation. All those are true, but one more important thing which to my mind is very important is that government seeks to ensure everybody has whosoever wants to work is provided the employment. And it has one more thing which is which escapes the attention of many writers, that it provides peace and tranquility to the country, to the nation, the domestic boundary. And why? Because the the energy, the vibrant things of the educated youth is channelized in the right direction. Else, what happens? We have seen many countries, if the unemployment rate is very high, it leads to the social unrest and many other kind of antisocial activities, because their energy has to be burned and channelized in a proper fashion. So that is one good aspect in this budget which has addressed, but they have not said in so many words what are the advantage of providing the budget. So inclusiveness and everything is everybody talks, but this social aspect and the consequence of providing employment is very, very important. Second is the agriculture, which I'll talk in a little while now. But then it has also provided how to give the spur to the manufacturing, MSME, and things like that. So this is very important. This is a forward looking. So with these few words, let me hand over to Professor Upinder Sawhney to start with, and then I will request my colleague Dr. Rattan to come on the health, and then Dr. Mohinder. Then I will see the order how it unfolds. So Professor Upinder Sawhney, you can talk to the general terms about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll come the second round. So over to Professor Sawhney.
Thank you, Professor Vishandass, and thank you, EGROW Foundation, for giving me this opportunity to be a panelist among such an august panel. Unlike what my friend Dr. Charan Singh feels, I feel that just a few hours after the presentation of the budget, I'm not competent to analyze the budget. It can best be an impression of the same. Now, as already pointed out, that the finance minister, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay.
You are.
As already pointed out that the Finance Minister, Nirmala Raman, has presented her 7th budget in a row, and it has been done in a very comprehensive manner. The major expectation from the budget was that of consumption boosting budget by placing more disposable income in the hands of the people, notably the salaried middle class. Another expectation was the employment generation. So we need to see how that has been delivered. Now, she started with a statement that amidst the global uncertainties, India is a bright spot with a good rate of growth. I completely agree with that. However, we tend to miss out that the rate of growth of our population is also very high. So we need to factor it in somewhere. She listed 9 priorities for this year and for coming years. These include productivity and resilience in agriculture, employment and skilling, inclusive human resource development and social justice, manufacturing and services, urban development, energy security, infrastructure, innovation and R&D, and next generation reforms. This focuses on job creation and boosting consumption, potentially benefiting consumer goods, real estate, and other sectors. It also takes care of political compulsions of the present government. She also mentioned that the focus of the budget is on poor women, youth, and farmers. So, looking at it in a comprehensive manner, the tribe of welfare spends, capital expenditure, and fiscal discipline has been balanced by her in this budget. There is a good amount of welfare spend on women-led development, the MSME sector, and the agriculture sector, covering a large part of the populace. Augmenting the welfare spends with an adequate thrust on capital expenditure while containing the fiscal deficit at 4.9% of GDP is a fine balancing act. However, the increase in capital gains tax and securities transaction tax has been a dampener on the capital markets. At least the early reaction of the capital market has been that of a dampener. Now, if we look at the fiscal consolidation aspect of this budget, in the post-COVID era, it has whatever was promised in the previous budgets, it has been delivered, and it is on the desired path. Secondly, the Review of Income Tax Act 1961 is a step in the direction of reforms as per the current requirement. The long-drawn litigations, disputes need to be minimized, and further simplification is required. The standard operating procedure for simplification of TDS reassessment is a welcome step. The FM also hinted on reducing tax uncertainty. This will really help in increasing the tax base as well as increasing the tax amount. In view of the prevailing food inflation and low consumption spending, there was a great hope for a tax regime placing more disposable income in the hands of the salaried class. However, the marginal changes in new tax regime, keeping the old one intact, do not point towards that. However, the idea of keeping the old one intact is that more and more people move towards the new tax regime. So in general, I don't think it is going to make a very meaningful impact on increase in the consumption spending, even though it needs to be seen in the fine print, what are the details. There is a reduction in basic customs duty for several items, including gold and silver. It's not clear at this stage what kind of impact it will have. The stock markets reacted to an increase in Security Transactions Act and tax, as the equity traders will have to pay more on their transactions now. The finance minister also announced that the long-term capital gains on all financial and non-financial assets will attract a rate of 12.5% from 10% earlier. She also announced that short-term gains on certain financial assets shall henceforth attract a rate of 20% from 15 earlier. So this has also been a damper on the stock market in general. The schemes on employment, which have been spelt out in a great detail, aim to create massive employment, but how is it going to pan out is not very clear. She has placed a lot of emphasis on MSMEs. Opening of SIDBI branches in MSME clusters is a step in the direction of providing them support at the doorstep. This should be very helpful, especially in states where there are more MSMEs than large industry, notably Punjab. The focus of the budget on service sector is also commendable. However, in an environment where cybercrime is increasing by a nanosecond and the pace of innovation in such crimes is tremendous, a specific mention for strengthening cybersecurity would have been in order. I will not delve into each sector in detail, as already mentioned by the chair, that there are experts for each sector. So I will not be taking much time. Just the expert on agriculture will give a deeper insight into the impact of this sector. The focus on boosting R&D is worth appreciating, but there is no mention of strengthening agricultural universities. I think we all know that the Green Revolution was spurred by research in the Indian Council of Agricultural Research and agricultural universities, notably of Punjab Agricultural University, Ludhiana, and Haryana Agricultural University. Now, these are reeling under financial crunch, and there is hardly any research activity which is taking place. So it would have been in order if a specific mention would have been there for strengthening research in agricultural universities and research institutes. So the states really need to upgrade the R&D infrastructure in these universities. So the states need a hand holding, because most states are shirking away from creating any kind of R&D environment in agriculture in their states. Also, the current farmers' agitation and the issues that they are taking up has not been dealt with in the budget, which would have given them hope, or which would have given them the idea that the government is keen and committed on resolving the issues of the agricultural sector. So agricultural sector is not confined to any one state. Of course, we have a number of states which are reeling under this problem, but this thing has not been adequately addressed in the budget. The repeated mention by the FM for partnership with the states. Hello? Hello? Okay, there was some kind of disturbance. Just a second. The repeated mention by the FM for partnership with the states for several schemes and programs for women, urban development, interest-free loans to states for land reforms, etc., is a welcome step for strengthening cooperative federalism. Only if it doesn't get marred in politics and only favors the states which are ruled by the ruling party and its allies. Similarly, the capital expenditure earmarked for state infrastructure must flow to states as per their requirements and not the political consideration. I'm sure the FM will take care of that in future, and most of the states will be treated as per their requirements, and this will strengthen cooperative federalism even more. I think I have just been able to give a bird's eye view of the budget. So as I said, that I'm not competent to analyze it at this stage. It's too early for me to read the fine print and go into the details. And moreover, we have experts for all the sectors. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Ashok.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Upinder. You made a very bird eye view and gave all the important things in a capsule form, which was very useful. And whatever you gave, absolutely fine. And you in fact described the whole thing what the FM said. Now I turn to, because health is very important sector. There are so many things about the health. So Dr. Rattan Chand, who is expert in health, I request him to please start on your analysis of the budget so far health sector is concerned. Dr. Rattan Chand. Is Rattan? Yes, he there.
मेरे को ना कुछ और लग रहा है
Dr. Rattan, are you audible? I mean, are we audible to you? Because I find his name. He's there, Rattan. Otherwise, we request, in case he is not ready or he is not able to hear us, may I request Colonel Mohinder Pal? And meanwhile, we'll contact Dr. Rattan. So you start for the sake of, I mean, maximum use of the time at our
Thank you.
disposal.
Thank you so much. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, very much, and you are visible as well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much for providing me this opportunity to talk about the defense budget. I've been speaking on it for the last 2 3 years on the EGROW platform, and gives me immense pleasure to once again analyze the government spendings, thus giving us a insight into how does the national security figure into the whole economic game of the country. Because I always said that when a country is growing economically, its military might also has to grow because big economies need big protection. So towards that, we need new ships, we need new aircraft carriers, we need new, fighter aircrafts, we need new squadrons, we need uh, guns, and we need to look after the manpower which we have. So all this put in all, uh, all the developed economies are spending a lot. If we see the countries like USA spending almost 680 billion dollars on the defense budget. Then if we compare with China, which is our immediate neighborhood, is almost reaching 200 and approximately 70 billion dollars on the defense allocations. We are far behind, lacking far behind as far as either we compare it with the part of GDP, which was generally the 2018 Committee on Security had proposed a allocation of almost 3% to the defense, but that is actually not happening. And over a period of time, this has reduced to almost less than 2%, which is a cause of little concern that as our economy is growing, our defense allocations must also grow. Also, if I look at the part of the government spendings, that also has somewhat gone down, though not in a very big way, but certainly if you see from the last 10 years, where it was somewhere in the tune of about 19.41% of the government spendings to coming down to almost 14, and now in this budget it is 12.9% of the government spendings. So from both angles, I feel somehow that we I think need to spend little more money to upgrade our defense forces to compete at the world level. Since we aspire to be world leaders, we aspire to be a developed nation and a guiding force in the world, and we are also part of a lot of alliances. So we need to assert us if we need to assert ourselves in a region, and that is possible when we grow economically as well as militarily. So toward that end, this year the budget in the main budget which was presented today, it has just seen an increase of 500 crores from what is what projected in the interim budget. So it is now pegged at 6,21,940 crores, which is 500 crores more than what is pegged, and it is about 4.72% more than the previous year's allocation, which was at 5.94 lakh crores for 2023-24. So previous year it was around 6% increase. This year has seen an increase of around 4.2%. Now, the main part whenever the budget comes for the defense is seen what are the allocations, because certain expenditures for defense are fixed, like the pay and allowances. When we are maintaining a 1.4 million army or defense forces, then of course a major chunk of it goes into the salaries and pay and allowances to maintain such a large force. Also, it goes a lot goes to the pensions, and then some part what is basically seen when the new budget comes is what is the allocation the government is providing in the capital. The capital is the one which is used for procurement of new weapon systems, new fighter aircraft, new guns, new ammunitions. So this is where the capital expenditure comes in. So this time the capital expenditure has seen an increase, and it is pegged at 1,72,000 crores. which is around, I think, 10% increase from the previous year, which is a good sign. And the good part of this capital procurement is our movement towards Atmanirbharta, which has, after giving the three negative lists, Ministry of Defense, almost more than 100 items which they have said is going to be procured from the domestic sources. About 1 lakh crore has been given for out of this 1,72,000, about 1 lakh crores has been allocated from the domestic procurement. So that's a very good sign. And other two, three good things which I found in the allocations, which actually are almost the same as the interim budget, are the allocations to the border road organization. So we have been hearing in the last 1 decade that China has been upgrading its border infrastructure. To balance out our own upgradations, we needed a lot of the border roads organization is the one which is in charge of improving our infrastructure along the border. And this has been given a real fill of 30% in addition to last year's allocation. Now they are pegged at 6,500 crores has been allocated in this budget. I'm sure with this allocation, the border road organization will really develop their infrastructure on the borders, which China border requires really upgradations in terms of roads and airports and etc. So that is a good sign. And also, in order to develop our own weapon systems, the thing which we need to improve is R&D. And the IDEX, that is the Innovation or Defense Excellence, the department which is working on the innovations for the defense, have been allocated a reasonable amount of 518 crores of budget, which is a very good sign, which will improve our own Atmanirbharta items, and we are able to make our own weapon systems. So this is a very good sign. Overall, the budget, all in all, I feel that yes, it was expected. If I actually see my own expectations, I would have expected a much slightly more allocations, but nonetheless, about 30% is going to pay and allowances of the total budget, 22% is going to defense, 4% is going to civil defense organizations, and 27% is going to capital procurement. So this 27%, if we used properly, I'm sure we'll move towards a good security setup which is there. And as of now, this is my initial analysis, because more details are yet to be seen, yet to be uploaded. Because in the speech as such, there was not a mention of any special thing in the defense budget, which actually I was wanting to hear something. But the speech of the finance minister did not include anything much on the defense allocation. But that is right, because it is almost the same what was there in the interim budget. So nothing new on that. So that's it. My first impressions at this time is that it has been what we actually just expected from the interim budget. Nothing new has come up. No major change has taken place what interim budget was provided. Thank you so much. Sir, you are not audible. Vishandass sir, you are not audible, please.
Thank you, Colonel Mohinder Palji. Wonderful. You encapsulated everything that was relating to defense. Very, very good analysis and very pertinent. You are not swayed away by some emotion. So that's very good. Now I'm sure Dr. Rattan Chand is able to hear us. Rattan?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
So Rattan, yeah, good. So please, now
Okay.
floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Vishandass. Good afternoon to all distinguished speakers and participants. So, all of us have listened to the Finance Minister. She did not mention much about the health. So, but when we see at the budget, there has been increase. If we consider all the departments, Department of Health and Family Welfare, Department of Health Research, and Ministry of Ayush, Ayurveda, etc. Then we see around 20% increase in the health budget. So we can safely assume that all the schemes which are ongoing will continue. These schemes, many of us or all of us know that include National Health Mission, then also this Prime Minister Jan Arogya Yojana, then Ayushman Bharat Health and Wellness Centers, and Ayushman Bharat Health Mission, Ayushman Bharat Infrastructure Mission, then many national health programs covering catering to the communicable and the non-communicable diseases like tuberculosis, malaria, cancer, mental health, etc. And it also will include the aspirational districts and blocks, uh, which have been left behind in overall development of the country. So, in the interim budget, few things were said. I think some of those do not require any expenditure or money to carry them, like constitution of committees or setting up of more medical colleges. I think this can be done by the health ministry, and also the societal change. I mean, the government will form a high-powered committee for an extensive consideration of the challenges arising from fast population growth and demographic changes. So this type of things can be done by the government without any financial resources. And there were also schemes that for covering Anganwadi workers, Asha, etc. under this Ayushman Bharat Prime Minister Jan Arogya Yojana. So all those will be undertaken, I suppose. So overall, I feel the budget has been health budget has been increased. I think the main thing is now implement the program efficiently. Many of times we see that money is being provided, but even then the good services and quality services are not being provided. So if those things are taken care of, I think it is okay, and we can see better health in the days to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rattan Chand. Very briefly, you describe everything. So that's thanks a lot. And now I turn to Dr. Ajit Pal. Ajit Pal, now the floor is yours. I'm sure you will give the very deep analysis as you always do that. So we are looking forward. Over to you.
Thank you, and thank you, EGROW, and to the chair for having me on this panel. Very, very interesting panel. I'd like to begin by saying that you would have noticed that the markets were only down very slightly today. They began, when the budget first was announced, down a little bit more. And by the time the markets ended, they had recovered most of their losses. Given that the big impact was a direct impact on the market because of two changes in tax rates. One is the what they call the STT, which is the securities trading tax, which is on the options and futures. And the second was a change in the long-term capital gains that was announced. So given that both of these were a fairly material increase with a direct impact on the markets, I would say if you had taken away these two direct impacts, the market would have likely been up about, I would say, about 1% or 2%. So these are very material. You watch the 10% long-term capital gains tax go up to 12.5%. So that is almost like a 25% increase in the long-term capital gains tax. The long-term direction we know is to be increasing that long-term capital gains tax whenever we have the opportunity. And the securities tax, transaction tax, also we know that India in 2019 became the #1 trader of options in the entire world, more than even the United States. And since then, we have been increasing activity over there a lot. So I think the government has taken a very, very good opportunity at a time when the economy is robust. The forward indicators are very good to be strengthening from a long-term perspective. So from a markets perspective, I would say that the two sectors or three sectors that we looked at in terms of movement, the markets interpreted The infrastructure as a modest negative. So you would see L&T down 3%. You'd see a number of the infrastructure stocks down 1, 2, 3% because there was no incremental focus on infrastructure. In fact, when you looked at the 10 priorities provided by the Honorable FM, infrastructure was moved down a little bit. So I think other speakers have talked about the focus on the consumer increasing slightly. So you'll actually see that the consumer stocks were actually up and up quite solidly and materially. So the perception of the markets is that this focus on infrastructure, which I think some of you might be aware that I wanted to, to push and continue to push in the short term because the deficit is still fairly high. But I think the government is, the interpretation of the markets is that the government is now beginning to look at the consumption as well and is beginning to focus over there. And the financials also you will see were down slightly at the end of the day. That means, most of the growth that we have seen, tremendous growth in credit, it appears that the government is trying to moderate it. So overall, I would perceive that relative to what's happening in the global markets, the budget is being interpreted in a fairly positive way by the markets. Despite those direct taxes, which should have seen a more material decline, if you just run the math, the market is still, just down a tiny bit, which means that, the interpretation of how the businesses will overall do is very positive. So that's, I think, very, very good for the market. The other sort of very interesting observation in terms of international perception of the Indian markets is that the bond yields actually, dipped a little bit today. I know it's weakened in the past couple of days. And that tells you that the fiscal consolidation path that the Honorable FM provided, the international markets were comfortable with it. So our bond yield under 7% continues for the government. And I think that's also another opportunity to take this more conservative part towards the FRBM, which means more slowly, I would say, not more conservative, towards the goals, long-term goals that we have, is being opportunistic to help the economy grow faster. Because we did have the India join the JP Morgan bond index, and over the next 8 to 10 months, we have the unique opportunity to have greater demand for our bonds from India into these indices. And the government has, I think, stepped in and has made the path more gradual so that the economy and the markets actually do much better. So overall, I would say a very healthy response from the markets. A fairly neutral market means few surprises. That continuity which this government was focused on is broadly been there. Yes, it is an interim budget that has been replaced by the full budget. So we didn't expect too much in big surprises, but there have been in the past in many budgets surprises, and we didn't see too many surprises here, which is always good for the markets. Greater policy continuity, the small tweaks, the greater focus slightly on the rural, the greater focus on the consumer. These are very slight, small tweaks, but it's reflected in the capital markets activities today, in the stocks today, in the bond markets today, and also in the currency markets today, where we actually ended almost flat, which means that what happened was just a shift from the equity markets to the bond markets and not fund flows out of the country, which is something that we have to watch for. So I think I was asked only to speak on the markets today, but things look quite good. So I'll stop over there and we can move on to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ajit Pai. You gave a very, very interesting dissection of the markets, and it was very, because not many people are comfortable deciphering what does it mean, but you demystified it, and very, very interesting. Now, may I turn to Mr. Raman Agarwal? Raman, are you able to
Yes,
hear
sir.
us?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
So,
Yes, sir.
please, yours now.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, sir. Good evening, and thank you, EGROW Foundation, for giving me this opportunity. To begin with, since I represent the NBFC sector and more on the financial services sector, so a few things which stood out for me. See, generally, we saw a slight deviation here. Every time we used to have a dedicated section on financial services, especially even banks and all the credit institutions. though no specific mention. But I think there is one very important statement made by the finance minister, which probably has not really caught the eye, and I think I would like to highlight when she said that as part of the uh, uh, capital and entrepreneurship related reforms, government will come out with a financial sector vision and strategy document. I think this is going to be a very important step, because this is something which is very much required, and they say this will be for next 5 years, which will prepare the sector in terms of size, capacity and skills, and it will guide the work of the government, regulators, financial institutions and market participants. I think it's a few words said, but a very important step. Although we need to see how and when this takes shape, because what I foresee is that this will clearly spell out the role which various financial institutions like banks, like cooperative banks, like small finance banks, like NBFCs or developmental financial institutions, how are they going to take shape? We see a huge increase in demand for credit in the market. So how they will behave, how will they be able to raise funds? So I think a very important statement, Mayor, and I think I really look forward to this, which we need to see. Next important point, of course, which I would like to highlight is, on the MSMEs front, there are few incentives which have been announced, few schemes. So of course there is one they've announced about a specific credit guarantee scheme for MSMEs to purchase, plant and machinery. So for against the capital expenditure, they are coming out with another specific guarantee scheme. So this all the current guarantee scheme which is there for MSMEs is more on the working capital. Now this is focused at the capital expenditure, where any MSME which is into manufacturing would need to buy plant and machinery or equipment. So there is going to be a credit guarantee scheme for that. Then they are talking about a credit guarantee scheme also for MSMEs in stress, and that too the FM said for stress, meaning the ones who fall under the special mention accounts. So as you would know, special mention accounts is the RBI term. So any borrowing entity which is into a delay of 0 to 30 days is SMA 0, then 30 to 60 is SMA 1, and 30 to 60 then 30 to 60 is SMA 1, 60 to 90 SMA 2, because after 80 days it becomes an NPA. So that means the moment there is stress in an MSME, the government is going to provide additional credit support. Now, let me say a few words here. See, I think this is a very important aspect, because we have been saying that for MSMEs, in fact, for all small businesses, there needs to be a certain element of flexibility built in the system, because MSMEs suffer from a very fragile cash flow scenario. Any happening which may be beyond their control can disturb their cash flows. And going by the current RBI norms, the prudential norms, the moment any MSMEs goes into a stress and it
शिव
becomes
एक
an
मिनट आ जाओ
NPA,
एक मिनट
then
आ जाओ एक मिनट आ जाइए
when any amount of interference done amounts to restructuring. And for any such restructuring exercise, it is essential to classify the account as NPA. So that would be the great dampener. To counter that, I think since that is something which is in the RBI's prerogative, what is there in the prerogative of the government, they have done it. So what they said is, the moment there is any stress in any MSME, so instead of going for the so-called restructuring, they are now coming up with a scheme to provide additional credit, which will help that MSME to overcome that stress situation. So I think this is another very important move which the finance minister has announced, and which will help the MSME sector to a great extent. When they say that the public and another announcement which has been made is about banks coming up with their own credit assessment model for MSMEs based on the digital footprint of the MSMEs. Now, I think this is a clear win, because we all know now cash flow based lending based on the GST data is something which is really being looked at. And that is when the finance minister talked about the digital footprint. I think she was hinting at the GST data through the GSTN network. Since now GSTN has been classified as an account aggregator, that means any credit institution can have access to the GST data of any entity, and based on that, develop a cash flow based lending model. I think all I would need to request here to the government is that not only banks, I think here NBFCs can play a very important role, because NBFCs have developed an expertise when it comes to credit delivery to MSMEs. So this is as far as the pure lending fraternity. On a macro level, I think what Dr. Ajit also touched about, that we all know that government today is sitting with an additional kitty of about 1.5 to 2 lakh crores, which came out of the additional RBI dividend and the robust, more than expected direct tax collection. And a major chunk seems to be devoted towards maintaining the fiscal deficit and reducing it to 4.9 is the target set. I think this will itself have a very great multiplier effect, because what it means would mean that government will do that much of less government borrowings, and that will give an additional leeway to the private sector to borrow. The overall interest rate should come down, and the expectation is that with this kind of fiscal path, strict fiscal discipline, we should see an upgrade in our sovereign ratings also. So this will have an overall impact on the financial market. Last point, since I come from the NBFC sector, let me say on that front, specifically on the NBFCs, there is a sense of disappointment that we were expecting certain tax-related anomalies which were discussed in the pre-budget discussions also, and we were almost assured that they would be taken care of, had not been announced, especially related to exemptions on the TDS front. So we hope that they may be done outside the budget, because a mere notification is required. Thank you. Back to you, Dr. Vishandass. So you are on mute.
Yes. So thank you very much, Mr. Raman. It was very, very comprehensive and in a short time. May I now request Dr. Rajeshwari ji to make out your presentation whichever way, and we are looking forward. Over to you, Professor Rajeshwari.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible and as well as visible.
You are very much audible.
Yes. First of all, I would like to thank EGROW Foundation for giving me this opportunity and to be part of this panel. I am basically talking about education and employment sector. The union budget of 24-25 marks an essential step towards enhancing our education system, especially by advancing skill development and creating job opportunities. So basically, I'm just touching on 3-4 important announcements which has been done in today's budget. For the fiscal year 2025, the budget allocation is 1.48 lakh crore to education, employment and skill development together. And an additional of the 3 lakh crore is set aside for schemes specifically aimed at benefiting women and girls. So basically, this is a very welcoming, step from the government, because this is a good initiative, as it reflects a strong commitment to improving educational infrastructure and promoting gender equality. However, to maximize the impact, it is also essential that these funds are distributed equitably and also reaches the targeted group. Ensuring transparent reporting and robust accountability mechanism will also be critical to monitor the effectiveness and reach of these investments. The Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Raman has also announced a notable enhancement in support for education loans, offering up to 10 lakh for higher education at domestic institutions. The introduction of a 3% interest subsidy through e-vouchers is designed to ease the financial burden on students and encourage higher education. While this initiative is commendable for making education more accessible, it is also crucial to consider the long-term fiscal implication of such subsidies. Ensuring the sustainability of these supports without overburdening fiscal resources is also very important. Additionally, while increasing access to loans is beneficial, it is equally important to focus on the quality of education to ensure that these loans lead to meaningful educational outcome and as well as employment outcomes. Otherwise, it would be a fiscal, burden on the nation. So, apart from that, the budget also talks about skilling initiatives. The budget allocates 2 lakh crore to train 20 lakh youth over the next 5 years, marking a substantial investment in workforce development. This plan includes upgrading 1,000 industrial training institutions and aligning their programs with current industry needs. This is a strategic approach to addressing the skill gaps and improving job prospects. Successful implementation and effective coordination among stakeholders will be crucial. Establishing a robust monitoring mechanism will help assess the impact of these programs and ensure they lead to tangible improvements in employment rates and skill alignment. Along with that, the budget also talks about internship opportunities. A new initiative in the budget which offers internships at 500 top companies with monthly stipend of 5,000 and one-time aid of 6,000. The use of corporate social responsibility funds to support this program is a strategic move. However, the program's current scope is limited to top companies, potentially excluding smaller firms that could also provide valuable work experience. And expanding the initiative to include a wider range of employers could enhance its overall impact and inclusivity. But apart from, whatever has been mentioned in interim budget, these are the 4 or 5 important announcements which I could see with respect to education and employment. But I thought that there are certain things missing in the budget, especially with respect to fund availability for education sector. Otherwise, also it's always debatable that what we are spending as percentage of GDP on education sector is very less compared to many of the other developing and developed nations. The economic survey of 23-24 in fact has some of the important figures or facts which I'm going to quote here. That is, in 2017-18 budget, the education accounted for 2.8% of the GDP, which continued till 2023-24. In fact, in 2023-24, the education accounted for 2.7% of the GDP. I mean, when we are comparing it to many other, though, even after taking a lot of initiatives, in education sector, still we are not even able to reach the 3% of the GDP, whereas our NEP policy says that at least we should be able to spend 6% of the GDP. So in that way, I still feel that there is insufficient fund for education sector, as we have seen over a period of time. So it is always a marginal increase, compared to other sector. And interestingly, economic survey also quotes that the percentage of total expenditure dedicated to education has fallen from 10.7% to 9.2% during the same time period. And also, it continues, with saying that within the social sector, education share decreased from 42.4% to 35.3%. So basically, the first, thing which came to my mind is that though after taking all these initiatives, when it comes to the total allocation for the education sector, I think still we are lagging behind, which is lesser than 6% anyhow might be like more unrealistic at this point of time to think, but at least 3 to 4% of GDP, I think still we can we have to give it for education sector. The other day I was going through UNESCO's study report, where it clearly states that each dollar investment in primary education, which has a return of 15% to 20%. So basically, along with the higher education, it is also important to look at the primary and secondary education, which has a lot of contribution to returns or to the human development. And the second important thing throughout the budget, when like with respect to education and employment, we are talking about skill development, skill initiative, and so on. But what type of skills we are talking about, that is also like very, very important. What type of skill programs or training programs we are going to provide, right? So because when the world is moving towards AI and MI, the language of artificial intelligence, like what type of skills we provide to our youth, that also matters a lot when it comes to skill initiatives. So I think specific details about the skills to be developed, I think that has also to be taken care. And number three, incentivizing Indian educational institution to investment, especially in the top line higher education, that is very, very important. According to an estimation, the Indian students are going to spend nearly 6 lakh crore on education in foreign countries for the year 24-25. So we should also find a way to keep these students here, and this will happen only when we are able to attract good invest we invest more in the higher education, and as well as we are able to attract these students and as well as good faculties. So apart from this, I think the Union Budget 24-25 presents a comprehensive strategy to advance education, skill development, and as well as employment. By focusing on financial support for higher education, vocational training, and internship opportunities, the budget aims to create a more skilled and employable workforce. However, effective implementation, coordination, and long-term planning will be essential to achieving these objectives. Moving forward, it is also crucial to ensure that these initiatives not only meet their immediate goals, but also contribute to sustainable economic development and brighter future for all. Yeah, that's all from my side. As of now, this is the analysis with related to education sector. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rajeshwari. Wonderful presentation by you. And now may I request Professor Bijoykumar Singh. Hello, Bijoykumar Singh, are you able to hear us?
Yeah, no. Thank you, sir.
Yes, so floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Vishandass and the EGROW Foundation for giving me the opportunity of sharing my thoughts on this first budget of the new government. As a matter of fact, normally whenever I speak, I used to speak about the Northeast content of the budgets, but when I was asked for choice of a topic, I was apprehensive if there's nothing about the Northeast in this budget, And as a matter of fact, what I would like to, just mention at this stage that there was not much of the Northeastern region in this budget. And as a matter of fact, with the normal monsoon, then the gradual decline in inflation, then softening of the interest rates, then, of course, the fiscal space provided by the RBI's surplus transfer, and hopes for a better than expected GDP growth. We were expecting something big, particularly after the recent election also. But probably the politics of coalition has actually affected the vision as well as the actually the dimensions of this budget. So I will basically talk about the employment side, and of course, Professor Rajeshwari also has talked about that in very much detail. And what I would like to say at this stage is that employment continues to be a very, very crucial issue in any process of development, because it is through employment that the benefits of development will be transferred to the people, and in fact, in India also, we have been having lots of problems about the extent of employment, extent of employment, extent of unemployment, even though the government has been claiming through its official publications that the unemployment rate has come down substantially, but there are other documents as well, which actually can cast a doubt on those things. So basically, I also thought the government in this budget, the first budget of the new government, would be trying something big for this issue. But nevertheless, it has remained as one of the priority areas of the government, like this employment and skilling. And our problem here is that there's a huge amount of self-employed persons, with very little actually social protections, So we have to take care of them also. Then we have the huge number of unpaid workers in the household enterprises, then casual labor, and of course regular wage employees are not many. And but most of the policy programs have been actually concentrated in these areas. And in this budget also, as what Rajeshwari has mentioned, very especially that and of course the actual employment content, job content of this budget will take some time for quantification. But right now, when we look at when we look at policy programs that have been actually announced for the creation of jobs and then the skilling, I mean, that is quite pertinent. It's quite pertinent. The only problem is that the budget, particularly the budget, for the last few years, we have been talking about very long-term perspectives. And when we talk about a budget, we normally, we look for very, short-term or medium-term perspectives, But now we have become more or less used to the long-term perspectives, So whenever these proposals are given, there's always a reference to that 2047, 2047. I mean, the year of this thing, 100 years of independence. So, given that, actually the initiatives taken by the government for job creation as well as skilling, they are quite pertinent. And only problem is Professor Rajeshwari also has mentioned, the job market is changing very fast now. The nature of jobs are changing very fast, and if India wants to play a major role in the global job market, then we have a very big challenge. And whatever we are doing, I mean, may not be enough also, because we are having now artificial intelligence and then many other things, technological things are coming up, and both actually all these things have got positive as well as negative impacts on the job market. The net effect may be positive, but there will be some actually destabilizing situations in the short period. So those things have to be taken care of, and but I must say that even though the proposals for the budgets allocated may not be enough, but the direction is fairly good, So we are actually helping the people who will be looking for jobs by skilling them, and in that process, the government is planning to help them, by giving some loans, and even the employers also will be compensated. There will be actually some given incentives to employ these first timers also. So basically, we are going to have very big challenges in this field, but we are actually on the right direction, and what is to be understood, or what we should be very particular about is the quality of the skills. Our education system also has notoriously provided huge actually portion of unemployable graduates or actually technicians. So even when we are having problem of that type, when we come over to this artificial intelligence, this thing, so that actually needs to be taken very seriously. Otherwise again there will be a huge wastage, and at the end of the this thing, this program, or at the end of the 5-year plan of the 5 years, we may be having the same problem. And as I said, the assessment of the policies as such, is very tricky at this stage, because we are actually thinking about a very long-term perspective, and in between, so many things can happen, and so many unpredictable things can happen, just like the COVID episode, And as a matter of fact, our the move of the government towards the sustainable development goals by 2030, that actually was totally disrupted by the COVID episode, and I believe now no one is talking about the 2030 vision. Now we are talking about that 2047. Now, so what I would like to say at this stage, is actually I would like to mention Professor Upinder Sawhney's comment also. This being a very short period of time, we have not had the opportunity of looking at the fine prints of the budget, and so whatever I see is that we are actually moving in the right direction, but whether we are doing it enough, or whether there is enough for realizing our goals, that is a very different matter. And as Rajeshwari also has mentioned, we have to take particular care about the content skills that we are going to impart to our youth, because if our youths are not having the proper skills, and if the system fails to provide them with the appropriate skills, then the talk about demographic dividend is going to be quite irrelevant. We won't be able to take the full benefit of the demographic dividend if the youth are not properly skilled and they are not prepared. So those things should have to be taken care of, and and hopefully those details will become available uh, in the near future, and we'll be able to make a better comment on the quality of the policy initiatives, particularly in the job market. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Bijoykumar Singh. You gave very wonderful insights into the area you dealt with. Now I turn to Professor Nirmala Padmanabhan to give her perspective on the sector she has to cover. Professor Padmanabhan.
Thank you, EGROW Foundation and sir for giving me this opportunity. And I will just present my main 5 points or 6 points. I'll limit it to that. Am I audible?
Yes, you are very much.
Yeah. I'll be mostly speaking on one critical sector, that is women. And 2 days ago, let me just start it off. 2 days ago, I think Bijoykumar sir just aptly ended by mentioning the SDG index, SDG goals. The SDG index for countrywide index was published. And if you look at it, among the 17 goals, the lowest score in India is for gender, which is a red area of just 49. That shows a gender inequality that exists in the country. So in that context, I'm very glad that the finance minister has spoken about women-led development. So I'll be basing my analysis mostly on the gender budget statement. For some of you is that it? Okay. For some of you who really are not familiar with the gender budget statement, 2005 onwards, a budget statement is also coming out with a gender budget statement, which analyzes how much of total budgetary resources are being utilized for women. Now it has got 3 parts, part A, B and C. Part A has 100% of those funds which are reserved for women. Part B has got at least where 30 to 90%, and part C has where those schemes where less than 30% of the schemes are reserved for women. This year I was happy to see that PM Kisan is also included under part C last year and this year, that are around 15,000 crores. So at least that much of money is going to women's hands. And we know if money flows into a woman's hand, that will certainly be used most probably for the household as compared to what goes into a man's hand. Now that is one point that I'm going to say. And if you look at it, actually, the FM also spoke about 3.5 lakhs crore funds for women set apart, which is a very good thing. And if you split it up and see, and when I looked at a brief analysis only, I'm going to base my analysis on the gender budget statement. Brief analysis, when the gender budget statement actually started in 2005, only 2.5% of the total budgetary envelope was reserved for women. Now it is being utilized. Now it has increased to 6.79%, which is very good. Around 3 lakh 27 crores is the total amount. Now, but when you look inside, I was a bit disappointed because what I saw mostly was, yes, most of the schemes are still having that welfare orientation for women, where you treat women as objects of welfare. So you see, there is one positive thing is there is a large chunk of about 50,000 crores is reserved for Prime Minister's Awas Yojana. Yes, house. That is one positive thing is the house will be in the woman's name. She gets a woman house. So house is there. Then Jal Jeevan, this is there. Some 30,000 crores are there. Then gas connection, Ujjwala, the solar, all these are more giving water, housing, health, chulas, LPG connections, etc., which will certainly, in a way, it is good because that will enable, if women are freed from fetching water in rural areas and all that, that will free them to, that will improve their standard of living, and that will give them some freedom to move into the employment sector. But whatever said and done, most of these are welfare oriented. So the real empowerment, or if you really want a woman-led, that is a second point I'm talking about. If you really want a woman-led development, you need women to come into the workforce. And if you look at the labor force participation, the gender gap is huge. It's just 37% of the women are in the labor force participation. And there was a recent paper in the Indian Journal of Labor Economics by Dr. Kannan, which analyzed the labor force participation and workforce participation of women in the age group 25 to 59. Because normally we take 15 to 59, but you can safely assume that 15 to 25 is a time when more women are going into education and things like that. But if you take the actual 25 to 49, the real productive, what you find from 1980s is a decline in the workforce participation and the labor force participation. So what is generally seen is a discouraged worker effort, because we are still in a patriarchal society where the care responsibility comes on the women. And if they are not really having a job suited to their education within the confines of their home, it's very rarely that they are able to enter into the employment. So that is a second part, that there is a real gender gap in workforce participation, labor force participation. So now let us look at what is there in the employment options or skilling options. And that is what I was looking at. And when you look at the Ministry of Skill Development's demand in the gender depth, the actual amount for skilling is reserved for women is actually half, decreased by 50% compared to last year's. The only where I found an increase was and then another is, if you look at the MGNREGS, that is the source of livelihood for women in the rural areas. The amount has not increased at all during the past 3-4 years. It's remaining stagnant. And if you look at the economic survey itself, this MGNREGS, about 58% of the beneficiaries are women. They're supposed to offer 100 days of employment and that much income to the women. But you look at last year, it is the actual number of days availed is only 45. So even that amount, that minimum days of labor, which is work which is ensured, that entitlement the women are not getting. And that is usually accessed by the less skilled, less employed labor. Now, my hope in this is that if the Prime Minister has declared a lot of apprentice skilling, training, etc., I really hope that women will be able to make use of it to enhance their employability. That is a ray of hope that I have, and I hope that the people, the bureaucracy who are actually implementing it will give special focus. And the final point is the entrepreneurship that I'm talking about. Whole of Kerala, India is talking about entrepreneurship, self-employment, and include all those kind of this. But there is a clear gender divide. And as a person who has been running a business incubation center for girls and women in our educational institutions, I know how difficult it is for a woman entrepreneur to survive. In MSME, for instance, there is talk about e-commerce hub and granting of loans based on the digital footprint. Then what you really need to consider is that there is a clear gender divide in the digital world. So this might actually work against the women unless a special handholding is provided to them. And if you look at the Prime Minister's Employment Guarantee Program under the MSME, the total allocation is again decreased by 100 crores compared to last allotment. So all these kind of in my experience, what I have found is women actually need special handholding, because the economic survey itself talks about there is a penalty, motherhood penalty. The moment they become wives and mothers, they have a gendered roles. They spend about 6 hours of unpaid labor in so they need special handholding to succeed in employment or in entrepreneurship. And that special handholding is not visible. Apparently, at one go, it was not visible, because I've had only a brief time to evaluate the various schemes. It is not seen in the entrepreneurial culture also. There is no point in saying that we give both men and women an equal opportunity and then say we are gender neutral. That is being gender blind, because we are not a gender neutral society. We are a very patriarchal society. Just as the economic survey says, there is obviously a motherhood penalty. And that is a social good. That is a social cause that a woman is, meeting. So she really needs that extra support to have that economic empowerment, which will come only through employment and through entrepreneurship. Now, one final point I'll say, the FM specially talked about crush and I think they call it Palana centers, crush facilities and other facilities, because these are push factors. Because if a woman has a care responsibility at home, daycare center is very critical for women, that she can go out to work. But if you look at the Shakti mission, I had a brief look at the gender budget statement, and all these headings come under the Samarthya and the Sambal schemes. And if you look at I think the Samarthya scheme, which within which was included the women's hostel, the Palna, all those, the actual allotment has more or less remained stagnant compared to 2022 budget, and it has actually decreased compared to the allocation in the 23 budget. So overall, I would say that yes, the budget has given significant weightage to women, but through a welfare-oriented approach. I'm not saying that is not important. That is important, because women are getting access to their own asset, like houses in their name, farmers' income, LPG connection, electricity, water, etc. Yes, all those entitlements they're getting. But of critical importance is economic empowerment, which will enable them to earn a livelihood throughout their lives. And for that, special emphasis in the skilling front, in the employment sector, and in entrepreneurship are very much needed. And another thing I was looking at, often they talk about the Lakpati Didis. Yes, I have also analyzed those Lakpati Didi schemes. Most are, yes, they have enabled poor women to earn at least 1 lakh per year. But if you look at it, most of these works are in the lower skilled waste management, catering, all those kind of low payment, low skilled workers. So the question is, now the entrepreneurship or the agro-based entrepreneurship, which is announced in the farm sector, holds a ray of hope. My main, I think the main focus we should give on is how can, because if you look at the women employment, 45% of them are employed in the agriculture sector. So how can we access those entrepreneurships, which are the agro processing, which is a very critical thing for agriculture, because we know that only 5 to 5% of our fruits and vegetables are subject to agro processing. It's a very good initiative. So my focus now is going to be on how much of these opportunities in the agriculture sector are or will be available to empower women, to enable them to earn a livelihood and enhance livelihood, not just in the low paying, skilling sectors, but in more of manufacturing, particularly nano and micro manufacturing and entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Nirmala ji. You made a very comprehensive presentation about the women's issue, and they are part of the 50, at least 50% of the society in terms of number. So one can expect they should have the equal share in the fruits of development. And whatever I can see your point of view, and you have made very comprehensively and convincingly presented the case for the women budgeting, and wonderful, you added new dimension and new tangents which I am able to appreciate, and I'm sure other panelists and participant must be equally charged with what you presented. Now, last but not the least, I will present a little bit on the agriculture. So, agriculture is a backbone of Indian economy. In fact, agriculture is the lifeblood of Indian economy, and I think farmers are the backbone of that agriculture. And let me also add that agriculture op- deploys about 46.5% of the total workforce, 60% of the land, 83% of the fresh water, yet it gives about 15 to 16% in GVA. And if you adjust these numbers, and then it can be inferred from these numbers that the agriculture labor productivity is just 21% compared to that of non-agriculture sector. So such a thing cannot and should not be allowed to continue, because on one hand you are devoting and allocating so much resources, and that has a domestic resource cost to the nation, and yet what it gives, so we have to boost it. And then the FM has correctly said there are certain things on the total factor productivity. In the classical economics, there are three factors of production, all of us know, but then she has added two. I mean, entrepreneurship is also fourth one, but that she did add another one, the digitization, and that to me is very important. In agriculture sector, the digital ownership of the land is a very a big issue. She talked about that it will be digitized, and that is a ray of hope. Land, and it's not only restricted to rural. In urban, it little better system prevail, but in rural, I have extensively gone personally to most part of the country where agriculture is grown, and talk to the farmer. That's a big issue. So one, I hope there will be ray of the hope. There will be light at the end of the tunnel when digitization of the land record, especially in the rural area, in the agriculture sector, will be addressed to. Now, productivity and resilience in agriculture, I briefly mentioned, because agriculture has a very low productivity, and therefore the income of agriculture workers and the farmers is much less compared to those of the non-agriculture. That has been brought out by the situation assessment survey, and it is not a very bright picture of their income level. And then the FM has tried to give whatever best it can be done, allocation of 1.52 lakh crore for agriculture, which is a formidable thing, and I'm sure that will address the issue in some way. That is one. And national farming, that the natural farming, the 1 crore farmers are being initiated into the natural farming. And no country, if you analyze the developing country of yesteryears, which were developing 200, 300 years ago, which are developed today, no such country which is developed today had developed without having the export contribution of export in a significant proportion. So if we do our agriculture in a manner where we do the standardization, traceability, and branding, then only we can boost the agriculture export. As of now, we have 50 billion US dollar worth of agriculture export. I'm sure the agriculture export will boost, and if we do, and the government has allocated a significant amount for the agriculture research also. And one most important in agriculture is farmer keep on producing certain items, say for example rice and wheat, which are not demanded. So gold is gold when it is sold. What cannot be sold is not a gold. So therefore farmers are very important, and then they are not nudged to produce what is the demand. To me, the farmers are grapple with only two problems, because they need two things. If we are able to address those issues, one is getting the right price and getting the markets right. So even if farmers get the right price, their problem cannot be solved. Suppose they produce say 100 units of say rice, and only 60 are being sold, they get the good price and 40 remains unsold. So the government has to invest a lot on demand forecast, and they have to be the KVK, which are the extension worker in the Kirshi, that means agriculture extension worker, has to work a lot to nudge them what to produce, because we have to move from plate to plow. What? Because with increasing per capita in income, the demand for commodity, for example, fruits and vegetable is increasing. The FM has said about the fruits and vegetable that is very important, and 10,000 need-based bio input resources center to be produced. She had talked about the shrimp production and export of that. That's very good initiative. And digital public infrastructure, DPI, for coverage of farmers and their land. And she has said this will be done in 3 years. I'm sure 3 years, even if it is done in 3 years, I will be very happy. But 3 years is not a big period for such kind of work, because one has to remember it is a state subject, and you have to keep the states on board. In our constitutional scheme of thing, that comes under the state in the list 2, which is the state list, and then every state has a different thing. So the trust between center and the state has to exist, which she didn't mention. But unless you take the states along with you, only then things can be settled. Now I am tempted to give two contrasting examples how the trust works. Now when we were net food importing country in mid 60s, and suddenly the US stopped the shipment of wheat, when we were heavily dependent on our key supplies of wheat on US, and US really retaliate because India did not support US in their cause of Vietnam, because at that time they were fighting with Vietnam, and India did not support the US cause, and then in retaliation they stopped. So the food can be used as an arm twisting instrument. And then at that time, the Prime Minister of India, Lal Bahadur Shastri, gave a clarion call that I will eat cereal only once a day, and the whole nation followed it. Be it a woman, man, rich or poor, old, young, everybody, because the citizens of the country believed that government. In contrast, if you see what happened in the three formula, all economists, including, I mean, of national and international repute, they said mostly there was a consensus. Those three formulas which were enacted in 2000 were very good for the farmers, but the farmers were agitating, and at the end of the round, government has to withdraw and roll back those after 1 year or so in 2021. Why it happened? Because once you are saying these enact, those are the reform for reaching, because you perhaps the citizen did not believe the government. I don't find any other reason why they were rolled out. So the trust between the citizen, common citizen, and the government has to exist. That's very important. I'm sure and likewise the trust between center and state has to be augmented, and only then, because there are many subjects in the list 2 of the Constitution, 7th schedule of the Constitution of India, which defines the subject that has to be dealt by state, and land is one of them. So land reforms is very important to my mind, because that is the major factor of production for agriculture. You can't imagine
production of agriculture without land. So this has to be dealt in a very, very good thing. And vegetable production and supply is very important in this country. 30% people are the citizens are vegetarian for whatever region, which is highest anywhere in the world. 30% of its population being vegetarian. Therefore, the demand for pulses, because that is the main source of protein for the vegetarian. And in this country, about 30% means about 425 million people are vegetarian. How to ensure the food, the protein security of such people? So we had to be very self-sufficient in the pulse production. It has to be Atmanirbhar, which the FM has addressed the issue. I'm sure this will also be done, because I'm concerned about the vegetarian population of this country and their protein imperative, protein security. Everybody talks of food security, but nobody talks of the protein security. So that to me is very good, because Atmanirbhar, and she talked about the oil seed also. 5, she gave the mention of mustard, soybean, sesame, groundnut, and those are very important. And finally, the national cooperative policy is very important for systematic, orderly, and all-round development of cooperative sector has to be developed, and it must be. Now, why it is important, I will illustrate, and then that will be my last point. You look at the milk revolution, white revolution. Why it happened? Milk is not covered under the minimum support price, MSP, but yet it has created revolution. And why it has created revolution? Because there was a cooperative. And why cooperative? I always give the analogy of termite. Now, termite, people use in a negative sense, but I am going to use it in a very positive sense, because once termite is there, God forbid if anybody has experienced that in their home, the whole thing gets destroyed, damaged. But the multiplier force of termite, because they work together in tandem, and therefore their impact is very profound. So similarly, the cooperative culture, as in the milk sector, can be replicated in other subsectors of the agriculture. And I'm sure the agriculture has a very bright pole star kind of thing. And we look at the few years ago in COVID period, when all sectors of the economy registered the negative growth except the agriculture. So to me, agriculture provides a future, and is a fundamental. And to me, the agriculture sector is the one which generates the demand. Suppose secondary and tertiary sector is growing and manufacturing many things, who will buy it unless you financially empower our agriculture sector and the farmer? Because that is the major chunk of demand is generated from the agriculture. So to me, this budget is very good from agriculture point of view. She has taken adequate care of the sector. She has gone into reasonable depth of this sector. And if we move in this direction, it will grow very well. So with these few words, I stop here. Now, Professor Charan, if time permits, we can take few questions. Otherwise, he has to make some announcement, and then we'll. So, Professor Charan.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Vishandass. I think we have had a very good interaction. I'm sure you have to go on the TV channel again. I have to be on the TV channel again at 6 p.m., which is exactly 6 minutes from now. But
yeah, yes,
I would leave it to your judgment, because each one has made an exceedingly good presentation, and areas without any bells, and I think very accurate presentation. So it'll be interesting, and we still have 89 people joining us. We had at one point more than 120. I leave it to your discretion if you want to have a question answer session.
Yes, Charan, I know you are in a hurry, so let us take precisely two questions, and whosoever wants to. So let me take very one by LT. NPA increase are not as per the minister's sir statement. So anybody can respond to this whether NPA increase or not as per the minister. This is a question of fact. So perhaps we can. Uh, that the participant can check from the facts. But let me go to another question which seems quite good. Given that FM have changed the IT slab of only new tax regime, keeping at the old untouched, does it indicate FM is incentivizing India to spend more and save less for future? So the floor is open. Anybody can answer it. Maybe Dr. Rajeshwari or Ajit Pai, anybody. Rajeshwari, would you like to respond to this? Then I'll take one more question after this, and that will be the last one. Dr. Rajeshwari, you are able to hear us?
I can answer that.
Oh, so please carry on. Go ahead.
Did you say? Hello?
Okay, Rajesh. It seems Dr. Rajeshwari. Dr. Ajit Pai, I think you can handle it very appropriately.
So if I understood the question right, they're saying that the government has shifted focus towards increasing consumption from the investment. And I think that interpretation of the participant is correct. When you increase the capital gains tax, when you increase the STT tax, you're trying to reduce speculation or any potential froth in the market on a market that has gone up quite a bit. And also the other moves that they have made, you're trying to increase consumption. I think that at this stage, while I myself am a longer term focused individual who still wants focus on infrastructure, what the government, RBI and the government is looking at is likely that our capacity utilization is still in the mid 70s. It needs to climb up to above 80% to kick a whole new private investment cycle. So I think the government is doing exactly what this participant has asked, which is to try and get the consumer to step in so that the capital expenditure cycle begins earlier rather than later. We are at high capital utilization. It has gone up, but I think that the way I would interpret what the budget is a move in the direction to make the capacity utilization go up, get the consumption to go up slightly, and help investments, the fixed capital formation and the investments to trigger the new private capex cycle, which has not occurred yet. In the past 10, 12 years, we have been waiting for it. And that's what I think is the broad direction. I don't know whether that addresses the question.
No, I think you have appropriately answered this. This really sufficiently, replies. Thank you very much, Mr. Ajit Pai. Now, a last question. The government does not focus on agriculture and light sector. Incentive provide for the industrial sector only. What about the agriculture sector, subsidy and incentive? So just my short answer to this, agriculture gets very important attention this time, and I'll compare to earlier budget. This is much more, it has drawn the attention and interest of the government, and it has been so many issues are there, but the issues are so complexity of issue is so deep that it may take time. But to me, the government has taken the right step in the right direction. It may take a few years to fix the problem, but initial initiative is good, and it is also reflected in the budget. for the or the financial allocation for the sector, and many other far-reaching, which has a long-term ramification for the betterment of the sector, have been. I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever, and I'm sure agriculture sector will be growing with a renewed energy and vigor. So we stop the main discussion. Maybe Professor Charan has few announcement, and then we'll end this. Over to Professor Charan.
So thank you very much. Just one important announcement. Kargil Vijay Divas is being celebrated on July 26. You are welcome to join our webinar on that. The session chair will be Partha Sarthi, Ambassador to Kargil, Ambassador to Pakistan at that time. And then there are generals, and then there is a professor. Welcome to join. And I must thank you for your time today. I have to rush as they are calling me now for the next TV channel. Thank you very much.
So on behalf of EGROW Foundation, on my own behalf, I thank you each and everyone in the panel, and everybody giving comprehensive presentation. It's not only comprehensive, it's convincing, because everybody dealt in a very different aspect, because budget is so vast, no single person perhaps can do justice. I mean, that's my assumption. I'm not sure whether I am right or not, but whosoever gave the segment wise or the small sector wise, that's absolutely so enriching, and it was a masterful exposition. And from the bottom of my heart, I really thank you very much, Mr. Ajit Pai, Bijoykumar Singh, Nirmala Padmanabhan, Dr. Rajeshwari, you are Dr. Rattan Chand, Dr. Mohinder Pal, Dr. Upinder Sani, because the way they speak was showing how much depth they have in their understanding and analyzing and dissecting the facts. Wonderful. It was a great engagement, and I could not make out that we spent 2 hours. Within no time, I'm not able to make this. 2 hours is over now. So thank you very much. And all the participants, they were very attentive as usual. And I expect they should be with us for all future webinar. We hold the webinar every week, and we have been holding it for more than 200 weeks. So thank you. Here we stop, and all the best to you.
Thank you very much.